I am Eva, 30 years old, a graphic designer living in a cozy little house in Briarwood, a peaceful town where I have found tranquility and newfound happiness in life. But there are scars that are not easily erased. No matter how happy I am, no matter how much I love being married to Ethan, a wonderful man, who I am proud to call my husband, the ghosts of the past still follow me. Ethan is a smart and warm man, successful in his real estate career. He takes care of me like a treasure, never letting me worry about anything. We met 5 years ago when I was hired to design a logo for his company. It was just an ordinary meeting, but no one could have guessed that it would turn into a beautiful, meaningful love story. We got married, and I am now 7 months pregnant with a son. Life seemed perfect, but why can't I shake the feeling of worry and unease? Ethan is everything I need in a husband, but when I look at my own family, I can't help but feel a deep sense of emptiness. My family, especially my mother, Veronica, is a completely different world. My mother has always been the epitome of perfection. She participates in every charity, hosts high-class parties, and always appears with a luxurious, powerful presence. Everyone admires her, but in my eyes, she was never really a mother. I always felt like I was just a shadow in her shadow, never truly seen by her. My sister, Rachel, is the model that my mother has always admired. She is everything my mother wants: smart, successful, and always living in luxury apartments, respected by everyone. She works at a famous art gallery in the city and is the person my mother always boasts about to her friends as proof of our family's success and perfection. Meanwhile, I always felt like a faint shadow. Although I have succeeded in graphic design, built a name in the industry, and secured some major contracts, in my mother's eyes, I am just a child who is not good enough. When I announced that I was pregnant, I imagined a different scene. I thought my mother would be thrilled, that she would offer me heartfelt congratulations. But no, she just looked at me coldly, without a smile. "Are you sure?" she asked, her tone indifferent, as if I was presenting something unreliable. "This test could be wrong. You should check again." I said nothing. The feeling at that moment was like a knife stabbing into my heart. My mother never saw me as an adult. To her, I was just a clumsy daughter, unworthy of her pride. When I told Rachel about my pregnancy, I only received a cold response. Not joy, but quiet jealousy. Hard to notice, but enough to make me feel like an outsider in this family. Everything became even more complicated when I found myself caught between two worlds. On one side was my husband's family, who loved and supported me, and on the other was my own family, where I was always undervalued, always hurt by cold words and harsh comparisons. While I was living in the family I had always dreamed of, with Ethan and the love from his parents, I couldn't help but remember what my mother and sister had done to me over the years. Could I truly build a happy family? Or would I continue living in my mother's shadow, as someone who was never truly seen? As the day of the party drew closer, I felt the anxiety in my heart growing stronger. Even though Ethan constantly reassured me not to worry, saying we were building our own family, and that was the most important thing, I couldn't help but think about the ghosts of the past watching over me. Ethan and his family were very thoughtful. Barbara, my mother-in-law, was the one who took charge of organizing everything for this party, with meticulous care and endless love. The cakes had been ordered, the invitations had been sent out, and a festive atmosphere filled the house. From the twinkling lights in the garden to the soft pale blue tablecloths and pristine white rose bouquets, everything seemed to be prepared for a truly special occasion. This would surely be a beautiful and joyful celebration, for the guests, and for me as well. But there was one thing I couldn't shake from my mind. My mother and Rachel had confirmed they would come. The words my mother said when I was pregnant kept echoing in my head. "Are you sure?" This test could be wrong. Although she didn't say it outright, I knew she had never truly been happy about my pregnancy. It wasn't just that I was pregnant, but everything I had done in my life, all the decisions I had made. None of it was ever truly recognized by my mother. Rachel, my sister, was even colder. Her jealous remarks were never immediately obvious, but I could feel the subtle head shakes, the cold stares when I talked about my life. She was the one my mother always took pride in, and I was the one left out. No matter what I did, no matter how successful, it could never compare to what Rachel had achieved. Ethan always said, "We don't have to live for the recognition of others, Eva. Our family has already started, and that's the most important thing." But wounds aren't easily healed, especially the ones inflicted by your own family. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was just a shadow in my own life story. The day before the party, I was sitting in the nursery admiring the little items we had prepared for our son. The room was filled with the love of Ethan and me. The tiny towels, the toys hanging in the crib, all exuded care and hope. I sighed, smiled to myself, telling myself that no matter what my family was like, I would hold on to this happiness. But then, I heard the soft footsteps from the door. Ethan walked in, holding an instruction manual for the crib we had just bought the day before. He smiled and looked at me with a loving gaze. "It's done. Don't worry. We'll have a safe and warm place for our baby." He sat down next to me, said nothing more, and gently took my hand. The peace I felt from him was the only thing I needed right now. He didn't need to say much, but every time he touched me, I could feel the unconditional love. The kind of love I had searched for all my life, but could never receive from my own family. "Do you think tomorrow will be okay?" I asked, my voice trembling with a vague sense of anxiety. He looked at me, his gaze filled with determination. "Tomorrow will be wonderful, my love. We'll make everything special for our son. We do everything for our family, Eva. We don't need anyone to accept or understand us." He placed his hand on my knee and gently rubbed it, making me feel more at ease. "I just don't want them to ruin everything," I whispered, my eyes welling up with tears. Ethan gently kissed my forehead. "They can't ruin anything. You and our son are the most important, and you won't have to face this alone. I'll always be here." As the day of the party approached, I felt a strange sensation in my heart. The preparations with Ethan and his family had gone smoothly, but something inside me still felt off. This event was supposed to be a moment of happiness and joy, a chance to welcome the baby we had been waiting for, a chance to feel the love from our loved ones. But I couldn't shake the heavy feeling in my stomach, as if a storm was about to hit, and I wouldn't be able to avoid it. We had prepared everything meticulously. Barbara and Mark, my in-laws, were the ones who took charge of everything. My mother-in-law, Barbara, came up with all the ideas for the party, from the decorations, the cakes, to the twinkling lights illuminating the garden. The surroundings were beautiful, full of colors and warmth. Outside in the garden, the twinkling lights hanging from the trees were like stars, reflecting off the birthday cakes and gifts brought by the guests. I have to admit, everything was beautiful and perfect, just like in my dreams of a happy family. But the more I saw the close ones arriving, the more I felt that the presence of my mother and sister was an indelible stain. My mother, even though she didn't outright reject me, her coldness when I was pregnant still lingered in my heart. And Rachel, though she never said it, I knew she still couldn't accept that I would be the first mother in the family. Small actions, like her not bothering to look me in the eye when we met, were clear signs of jealousy and disappointment. Ethan kept reassuring me. "We're going to have a great day. Don't let anyone ruin it." And I wanted to believe that, but when you live your life in someone else's shadow, you understand that the scars in your soul aren't easily healed. Every time I thought about my mother being at the party, my heart would tighten. That afternoon, as the party was about to begin, I realized my worries hadn't been unfounded. My mother and Rachel were over an hour late, which wasn't typical of my mother. She was always meticulous, always on time, always the center of every event. But this time, she wasn't rushing or cheerful like usual. Instead, she stepped out of the sleek black car, her eyes never meeting anyone's, only staring at the ground as if avoiding my gaze. Rachel followed, not even sparing me a glance, just holding her phone and scrolling through it. They both walked into the garden, and the atmosphere instantly became cold. My in-laws, with the warmth of gracious hosts, greeted them politely, but I could clearly feel the tension between us. Both my mother and I tried to maintain a calm exterior, but I knew I was standing on thin ice, and any movement could cause it to shatter. My mother walked straight to a group of guests and started a conversation as if nothing had happened. As for Rachel, she didn't say a word to me. She simply poured herself a glass of red wine and automatically walked to the buffet area to check the food, not bothering to pay attention to anyone. I tried to stay calm, but I couldn't shake the feeling that their presence was making the air around me feel heavy, oddly silent. Each congratulations, every admiring glance from the guests felt like a wave crashing over me, but my heart was still sinking in anxiety. Ethan came to my side, gently holding my hand, trying to keep me close. "Are you okay?" he whispered, his eyes filled with concern. I smiled faintly, nodded, but my smile couldn't hide the rising anxiety inside me. "I'm fine, Ethan. Everything will be okay," I replied, but deep down I wasn't sure if that was really true. The party passed in heavy silence. People were chatting, but I could feel the tension in the air. My mother and Rachel didn't speak much to me, just sitting in a corner, watching the party without engaging in the happy conversations. All I could feel was their coldness, their indifference. The two people who had once meant everything to me. Everything seemed fine, until my mother stood up in the middle of the party and all eyes in the garden turned to her. Suddenly, a soft clink of a spoon against a wine glass rang out, signaling a change. My mother had decided to speak, and I knew the words she was about to say would not be easy. "Now I'd like everyone to pay attention," my mother said, her voice sweet but sharp. Everyone fell silent, looking at her. "Today is the day we celebrate Eva, but I think there's something we need to remember. Eva has always been the child who made me worry. Every step she takes makes it hard for me to be proud." It felt like a shock had hit me. The words my mother said felt like a knife stabbing into my heart, leaving me breathless. Everyone around us was silent, their attention fully on her, but I felt like I was left alone in that cold circle. My mother didn't stop there. She continued, "I have another daughter, Rachel. She has always made me proud. She deserves all the admiration, but Eva is never enough." That was the moment I couldn't bear anymore. I felt my blood rush to my face. My body stiffened. "Mom, please," I said, trying to stay calm, but my hands started to tremble. But my mother didn't stop. And then, she threw a hot bowl of soup at my stomach. The pain came without warning. Everything seemed to spin around me. All I could feel was the burning heat on my body and the fear that I had just lost my child. I collapsed, holding my stomach, feeling like everything around me turned into a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. Everything happened so quickly that I couldn't grasp the pain and panic rising within me. When the hot bowl of soup splashed onto my stomach, my skin felt like it was being scorched instantly. The pain tore through me. The unbearable burning sensation made me scream. I bent over, holding my stomach, trying to breathe, but I couldn't do anything but feel the panic spreading from my body. Ethan rushed to me immediately, his eyes filled with worry and helplessness. He knelt beside me, saying nothing but just holding me tightly in his arms. "Eva, are you okay? Our baby?" he hurriedly asked, but in his eyes I could see the confusion, the extreme fear. And in that moment, all I felt was a terrifying fear creeping into every part of my body. Our baby, Is the baby okay, Ethan? I whispered, my mouth trembling with pain, but my concern for the baby in my belly overshadowed everything else. Rebecca, my obstetrician, immediately rushed over, pushing the crowd away to get to me. She quickly checked my condition, but the signs of worry in her eyes were something I couldn't ignore. We can't delay any longer, Rebecca ordered. Eva needs to be taken to the hospital immediately. She needs urgent care. Now. Her voice was firm but filled with concern. I no longer felt like I was in a party. Everything around me seemed to fall apart. Guests were panicking. Whispers rang out from the crowd, criticizing my mother's actions. But that didn't ease the pain I felt. Ethan's screams couldn't bring me back. Only the sound of someone calling for an ambulance could, ringing like an alarm that the situation was critical. I felt myself being carried into the ambulance, my body in pain, but my mind sank into emptiness. Ethan sat beside me, his hand never leaving mine, his eyes filled with concern. Eva, you'll be okay. Our baby will be okay. He spoke with a steadiness I didn't know I could find in this situation, but all I could do was look at him with eyes full of fear, unable to say a word. The fear that I might lose the baby, that everything would end in tragedy, haunted me. Upon arriving at the hospital, I was immediately taken to the emergency room. The doctors quickly performed tests and monitored my condition, but everything seemed to fade. A sense of despair overwhelmed me, not because of the pain, but because of the silence in my stomach. The baby was still, no gentle kicks, just an eerie silence. 1 minute passed like hours. Rebecca entered the room with clear concern on her face. Ava, we need to monitor this very closely. The baby's heartbeat is still there, but it's weak. I'll need to keep you here for further observation, she said, but her eyes betrayed her worry. Rebecca, is my baby okay? I couldn't keep my composure, and the fear in my voice was impossible to hide. She placed her hand on my shoulder, giving it a gentle squeeze. We're doing everything we can to protect the baby. Eva, you'll be okay. But I knew that peace wouldn't come just yet. The following hours dragged on. I had to face the truth that my baby's life was now as fragile as a thread, and there was nothing I could do to save it except hold on to hope. When I woke up after the attack, the pain still tormented me, but the stronger sensation was the emptiness in my stomach. I tried to look out of the hospital window, where the dim light of the afternoon was shining through, but my mind was spinning with one single question. Is my baby okay? Ethan sat by my bed, still holding my hand tightly. He looked at me with eyes full of worry and determination. Eva, you'll be okay. The baby will be okay. He sighed, his face tense, but I could feel something I had never seen before. Ethan was ready to do anything to protect us. Dr. Rebecca, who had been monitoring my pregnancy, entered the room. She was a very patient person, always giving me a sense of comfort every time we met, but today her gaze was different. Ava, she said, her voice calm but filled with concern. You'll be okay, but the baby's heartbeat is still weak. We need to monitor you more closely. Don't celebrate just yet. She looked at me, her sharp eyes, as if she knew my condition wasn't fully stable yet. I could feel the unease in Rebecca's eyes, and my fear grew stronger with every passing moment. My baby is all I have left in this life. I couldn't protect it from pain, from harm. But I also knew that once I decided to fight, I wouldn't back down. To protect my child, I had to face the truth and the pain once again. After being discharged from the hospital, Ethan and I immediately began preparing the necessary evidence. I couldn't let my mother and Rachel continue to escape the consequences of what they had done. The lawyer we found, Sarah, was highly experienced in family and domestic violence cases. When we first met her, she looked at us seriously, not overlooking any details. We need to have all the clear evidence, Ava, Sarah began, her eyes fixed on me with determination. Videos, photos of the injuries, and witness testimonies. Everything must be prepared carefully. Karen, the one who called the emergency services and witnessed the attack, was ready to be a witness for us. She provided notes on what she had seen during the incident, including how my mother acted before throwing the hot soup at my stomach. Karen's testimony was crucial because it confirmed that this wasn't an accident, but an intentional act. I also asked another doctor to examine my injuries. Dr. Johnson conducted a thorough checkup and provided a detailed report on the burns I had suffered. It included information on the degree of the burns, the affected areas, and photographs of the injuries. The doctor also confirmed that my burns not only caused pain, but could also affect the development of the fetus if not properly treated. An important part of the preparation process was gathering all conversations and messages related to my mother and Rachel. The messages my mother sent after the incident, with cold and indifferent words, were saved. These were powerful pieces of evidence of her indifference towards me over the years. The day of the trial arrived, and I felt like the whole world was closing in on me. The anxiety and tension pushed me to the point of exhaustion. Ethan sat beside me, holding my hand tightly, his eyes looking straight at me, filled with worry, but also with determination. "Don't be afraid," he whispered. "We are doing the right thing. Remember, we are fighting for the truth." But in my heart, the nervousness couldn't stop. I knew I had to be strong, but everything was still so new and overwhelming. My mother and Rachel sat in the defendant's seats, their faces emotionless, as if everything they had done was perfectly justified. My mother maintained her cold demeanor, her expensive outfit, her perfectly styled hair. Rachel was no different. She sat silently, not looking at me, her eyes cold, as if none of this mattered to her. When the judge asked the parties to begin the trial, Sarah, our lawyer, had prepared everything long in advance. She started by introducing the evidence we had gathered, from videos to the testimonies of Karen and Dr. Johnson. Everything was clear, strong, and irrefutable. My mother and Rachel couldn't escape taking responsibility for their actions. When it was Karen's turn to testify, she stood firm, her voice clear and confident. When I arrived, I saw Eva doubled over in pain, and her mother was just standing there, without any worry, no apology or compassion. Then she threw a bowl of soup at Eva's stomach, as if it was a normal thing to do. After Karen's testimony, a video clip from the party was shown on the screen. The footage was clear, capturing the moment I doubled over in pain, and my mother, still standing there, cold, with no sign of concern. These videos caused a stir in the courtroom, but it didn't end there. My mother and Rachel continued to deny their responsibility. As the trial continued, my mother was the first to take the stand. She appeared calm, without any remorse. She started to justify herself, her cold eyes locked on the judge. "This isn't as serious as they're making it out to be. Ava is blowing this out of proportion. It was just a small accident. There's no need to make it a big deal. I was just a bit angry, but I didn't do anything so wrong that it warrants going to court." She tried to maintain her composure, but in her voice, I could clearly hear her defensiveness. "I don't think I should be held responsible for this. I just overreacted a little." My mother's words hit me like a shock. She still didn't recognize the pain she had caused me. My mother, the one I had always longed for love from, was now justifying her cruel actions. I felt like I had been stabbed in the heart. Rachel immediately stood up to support my mother. "My mom wouldn't do that. She couldn't have done such a thing. Eva must have misunderstood. She's always been too sensitive and fragile. I don't think throwing a bowl of soup at her stomach is something serious enough to take to court." She tried to create a conciliatory atmosphere, and her words seemed to minimize the seriousness of the situation. "Eva has always been quick to anger and blow things out of proportion. That's why we couldn't control it. It's all just a misunderstanding." My mother's and Rachel's justifications felt like a strong blow to me. Rachel, whom I had always considered my sister, was now standing with my mother, defending her, without any sign of regret or admission of guilt. Their words left me speechless. I just sat in silence, feeling like I had nothing left to say. My mother and Rachel couldn't see the wrong in their actions. They still saw themselves as the victims, continuing to create a perfect facade to cover up their wrongdoings. And as they tried to justify what had happened, I realized that a part of me had died long ago. My love and respect for my family. I couldn't stay silent any longer. When it was my turn to testify, I stood up straight, took a deep breath, and began speaking, my voice firm but filled with pain. I stand here today not for revenge, but to seek justice, not only for myself, but also for the child in my womb. What my mother and Rachel did wasn't a spur-of-the-moment act, but a harm that has accumulated over many years. My mother didn't love me, she didn't respect me, and these wounds can't just be healed by empty apologies. My mother didn't say anything, her gaze still as cold as it had been for all these years. Rachel didn't dare face me, she just stayed silent, looking down at the ground, her eyes full of regret, but not enough courage to admit her fault. When the trial ended, I heard the judge's verdict. My mother was sentenced to 3 years in prison for assaulting a pregnant woman, and Rachel was sentenced to 1 year in prison, along with a large fine and mandatory counseling. This was justice. After the trial, I felt like I had just fought a battle that lasted my entire life. When the verdict was announced, everything seemed to be over, but in reality, that was just the first step in my journey. My mother and Rachel had to face the consequences of their actions, but I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. However, I had decided not to let the past and those wounds affect my future anymore. Ethan was the one who stayed by my side throughout this crisis, and he was the only one who made me feel like I could start over. One early summer morning, as I lay on the couch in our garden, watching the fresh green leaves stretch towards the sunlight, I felt a sense of peace. A feeling I had never experienced before. Rebecca's words still echoed in my mind. You'll be okay. Your baby will be okay. We decided to move into a new house, a place where I could start fresh, where there would be no trace of the painful past. Ethan had found a house in the suburbs, not too far from where we lived, but far enough to create a private, peaceful space. Every morning, I would wake up and look out the window, the sunlight streaming through the trees, and I felt like I had found the freedom I had longed for. We moved in here at the start of summer, and everything was new. The brightly lit kitchen, the spacious bedroom, and especially the nursery for our soon-to-be-born child. Ethan had carefully planned everything, and I knew that I wasn't just building a new family, but also a complete life, free from the shadows of past brokenness. My mother and Rachel hadn't contacted me after the trial, and I had decided that I would no longer wait for them. They no longer had the power to hurt me. Honestly, I was tired of waiting for their approval. I wasn't the person they wanted me to be anymore, and that no longer mattered. I knew I was a mother, a wife, and most importantly, I was myself. A month after we moved into the new house, everything seemed to have settled. But I realized that inside, there was still a feeling that couldn't be easily shaken. Could I truly forget the pain of the past and move forward, living the full and happy life I had always dreamed of? That night, after Ethan had gone to sleep, I sat by the window, looking outside where the streetlights glowed faintly in the darkness. I sighed, feeling the stillness surrounding me, a peace I had never known before. But a part of me still couldn't forget what had happened. What had my mother done to me? Why did she treat me like this? Why did Rachel, the one I had always loved, side with my mother instead of standing up for me? I knew that the answers wouldn't come immediately, but I understood that I had to learn to face the past, not let those wounds affect my present life. And I also knew that Ethan, he was the one who would help me rebuild. Help me find myself again. He was always patient and loving, and I knew that we were creating a real family, not just through blood relations, but through respect, understanding, and true love. The day Sophia was born, I felt a relief beyond words. She was not only the greatest joy of my life, but also the closing of a chapter filled with pain, betrayal, and loss. When she was placed in my arms, all the pain, all the sadness, everything I had gone through over the years, disappeared. This feeling, the unconditional love for my daughter, was something I had never experienced before. Ethan stood beside me, his eyes brimming with tears, and I could clearly see the pride in his gaze. "She's amazing, Eva. You're amazing," he said, gently kissing my forehead as I smiled, looking at our little girl in my arms. "We did it, Eva. She's everything." My family is now complete, not just with Sophia's presence, but with the deep bond between us. I no longer have to live in fear, under the pressure from my mother and Rachel. We've created a safe space, full of love, where everyone in the family feels respected and loved. After all, I've realized something important. True freedom and happiness aren't something that's given to you. They are things we create for ourselves, from the choices we make. No one can give you happiness if you don't find it within yourself. And I know that I have found that happiness